concepts are coming, and yet they only come to that cultural revival and effervescence at the end of the 16th century. So we can see it took 3 generations for that Orthodox world to absorb this and then produce the cultural activity of the late 16th century. And the other from Natalia Yakovenko on this argument of the crisis at the end of princely Rus, a society led by the princes, no longer ruling princes. I think the crisis of Ruthenian society came in 1471 with the abolition of the Kiev Principality, and they were unable to reassemble themselves in that guise until later. The end of the 16th century, although we now assume that the level of conversions and departing this Ruthenian religious cultural community was not as widespread as we once thought, but still was important, and caused, I think, the difficulty over Brest. I think as far as the 3-nation idea of the Commonwealth, of course, is relatively widespread by the very beginning of the 17th century. We have it already, and Smotritsky develops this frequently, and they believe that they constantly said, we are 3, Lithuanian, Polish, Ruthenian nations in the Commonwealth. And then the move to a political was extremely hard without a definite leader. To what degree the Cossack revolts play a role in undermining them, the divided loyalties, the church problems, the Kisil, who was always building things on quicksand. And he was the major Ruthenian Ukrainian politician. You might have expected he would have come up with some such proposal. But what was he always doing? Trying to take a situation that was breaking down and putting it together. You had too many fronts to work on at that point in it. I don't think this explains why something does or doesn't happen at a period, but it is part of that explanation of how difficult it was. The other, I guess, and I know Professor Kavinsky will speak more on that, is the degree to which the Commonwealth was already closed to it at that point and was not open really terribly to this solution. But
well, indeed, I'm sorry for that. Yes, indeed, I think that once we go through Hajjaj, I think that it is very important to remember that after all it is a Ruthenian idea. It is not idea coming from the other parts of the Commonwealth. I don't like to say Polish because we have other parts of Commonwealth which is also very strong, and we are, for example, too often forgetting Prussians. And Prussians have very strong sense of identity, very strong sense of their place in Commonwealth, or of their special rights there, like Lithuanians. And indeed, no one comes with that very clear vision of it. And the reason I would also say very strongly why it was not brought by the Ruthenian elite of that period of time, and by elite here I don't mean aristocracy, I just mean nobility, because they had Ruthenian aristocracy. And like that, by the second half of 17th century, they also have Polish crown or whatever mixture between them, Polonized aristocracy on the territories of Ukraine. In the sense that what I said before, the execution of law, its economical side, was not carried in on the eastern territories, neither in Lithuania, Grand Duchy of Lithuania, nor on Ukraine. And the nobility never had this amount of power like nobility of Krakow, Sandomierz, Poznań, Kalisz. Because only those counted as it did. And of course, Prussia was in hands of nobles and much stronger towns, which created once more a beautiful field for self-autonomy and deciding about these things. Nobility of Rus never had such a strong position vis-à-vis aristocracy. Aristocracy dominated and was, like every time aristocracy is, they're selfish.
Okay, we have still time for one question, and there is person.
Anish Pandya. The question is to Andrzej. Andrzej, you said, if I understood you correctly, that in the 19th century, Polish civil society was dead, and that ceased to be citizens and became subjects. I'm talking about from absolute ignorance, but somehow I think of the Polish democratic society, of the many revolutions, of the Polish positivist, of parliamentary life in Galicia, of the innumerable newspapers, of the associational life which was thriving everywhere in Eastern Europe. To me, that altogether sounds like civic society. So maybe you would care to explain this a little bit more.
Yes, sure, with pleasure. When you think, surely you are right, that what existed dissidents, existed opposition, and very courageous opposition. Yes, I would not say no. They were able to go and fight and die. And some of them did that, and they also thought as and tried to think like citizens, but they were not citizens. The citizenship was taken away from them. Already, even on the beginning of 19th century, in the place which was most free, and that is Congress Kingdom, which was created by Alexander I, Parliament existed, but in the Parliament, MPs, parliamentarians, could not bring new laws. They couldn't ask Emperor why he's doing this or that. They couldn't protest. I
meant Galicia.
Sorry, you mean Galicia? Well, in Galicia, of course, until basically 67, and the results of Hungarian uprising and the changes which it brought, that was the most restrictive and most unpleasant from all the partitions, and indeed that sense of citizenship also died. I mean, people did fight, that is true, but this is not civil society. Civil society, I agree, because civil society doesn't mean civic, doesn't mean that their citizens are ruling. Yes, if that was in Galicia, here you'd be absolutely right after 67. That's true. But not in other parts of Poland and Lithuania. Why I'm saying that? I think that it is important to understand that many reasons why our historiography in 19th century was presenting Commonwealth and relation of nation inside of Commonwealth the way it did is because indeed citizens die out and civic way of looking at things die out. And Poles in that period of time start indeed feeling that if they only have been as Austrians or as Russians or as Prussians toward everybody else, they will be very powerful and wonderful, and therefore this writing about history became completely different than writing of history before 1795. Now, is that a civic society, or is that not to say even citizens society, which by the end of 19th century gathers money to build the monument for Tsar? I mean, the Poles and the Ukrainians and Belarusians and Prussians, if I give them today name, looking to the past, fought every king of Poland. Because he was governor, and that government wanted to bring monarchy, take away their freedoms, which they won in 16th century. In every ruler saw the enemy. And then by the 19th century, they did gather more than 1 million rubles to build a monument in Warsaw for the Tsar. For me, it's death of citizen. Yes, rebuilding is towards the civil society, but we are using that terms of existence of civil society, let's say in some Latin American countries, where we know is that civic society, question mark. But there were few, I would agree to say, there is very few civic societies in the world and world history, but I would say that such did exist in the Commonwealth. And it was built by everybody, and everybody lived by it which doesn't stop fights. Civic society do fight between themselves.
Okay. Thank you very much for those speakers and discussants. We have to move forward. So, because Polish and Ukrainian and not only Central European relations are long and painful, sometimes we won't have breaks. So the session will run until 6. Next second, people.